Good day to all pre-service teachers. Today, our topic is all about learners with physical disabilities. So, you will be able to know how to identify, how to handle, and how to motivate learners with visual and hearing impairments. So, what is an impairment? It is a problem with the structure of the body. It is any that focus of the actual malformation or malfunction of the body. It may also be any permanent or temporary loss. For example, the problem with the structure of the ears or eyes may result to difficulty in hearing or vision. Let us discuss first learners with visual impairments. Learners with difficulty in seeing are those with issues regarding their sight that interferes their academics. The definition from Individual Disabilities Education Act or IDEA states that an impairment in vision may adversely affect a child's educational performance. They need their eyesight to be corrected by wearing eyeglasses or any optical devices. So, how to identify learners with visual impairments? Learners with difficulty in seeing have physical signs such as crossed eyes, eyes that turns out or in, eyes that flutter from side to side or up and down, and eyes that do not seem to focus. They have unusual degree of clumsiness because they usually bump into objects which causes them to fall down. Poor hand coordination, poor academic performance, constant eye rubbing, chronic eye redness, extreme light sensitivity, and lastly, unable to see objects at a distance. So let's move on how to handle learners with visual impairments. Modification in teaching is needed to accommodate students with difficulty in seeing. If books is part of the lesson, then students with difficulty in seeing should be informed ahead of time so that they can order the lesson in braille or in an audio format. Of the textbooks or instructional materials may be recorded so that visually impaired students can listen instead on focusing on the visual presentation. Another is all words written on the board should be read clearly. Then students with difficulty in seeing must be seated near to the board so that they can easily move near to the instructional materials used in the lesson. Another is a body must be assigned to a student with difficulty in seeing to assess the student whenever he or she goes to the other places in school during daytime. And lastly, give them more time in answering their tasks and homework because they really need it. So those are the tips in order to handle students with difficulty in seeing. So we're done discussing how to identify and how to handle learners with difficulty in seeing. So let's move on hearing impairments. Learners with difficulty in hearing refers to students with an issue regarding hearing that interferes their academic performance. Deafness is different from hearing impairment because deafness is considered when hearing loss is above 90 decibels, whereas hearing impairment is below 90 decibels. So, how to identify learners with hearing impairments? To identify learners with hearing impairments, an observation must be taken in order to know if he or she does the following. Just like speaking loudly, positioning his or her ear towards the direction the one speaking, has a delay in language development, asking for information repeatedly, not responding when called, has difficulty in following direction, and lastly, does not mind loud noises. So those are the signs of the student with hearing difficulties. Now let's move on how to handle students with hearing impairment. There are ways in order to handle students with hearing difficulties. First is exaggerating the pronunciation of words should not be done, for it will just make it difficult with students with hearing difficulties. Directions as well as important part of the lesson must be written on board. Lecture information must be presented on visual format. Steps in the activity may be acted instead of giving it verbally. A variety of multisensory activities should be given to allow the students to focus on their strengths. A teacher should be patient in waiting to hear a response to a hearing impaired student. Another is use facial expression, gestures, and body language in conveying a message. If possible, provide transcript of audio information. Use pictures, graphics, and text labels. And lastly, help the student in finding an effective note taker. How to motivate learners with visual and hearing impairment. Help them to improve their self-esteem. Compliment on the things that they have done. Use positive reinforcement. Then state realistic goals for them. Give equal treatment. Help the child develop responsibility. Reward the children. Integrate activities that affect the level of sensory stimulation. Students with visual impairment and hearing impairment should be encouraged to participate in all classroom activities, physical education, and extracurricular activities, providing students with structured autonomy support and involvement, supporting student needs, create reasonable goals, be creative within a structure, utilize technology, provide a warm, accepting home environment, give clear direction and feedback, create a model for success, build on the student's strength, and lastly, relate schoolwork to student interest. So that's all for today. Hope you learned something from my discussion.